Hello coaches and welcome to this edition of Give and Go Live. My name's David Newbury and I'm joined by my colleagues Vince Gansberg and Ian Barker. Hello Vince.
Hello David.
Hi Ian.
Hello Vince, and hello David. Glad to be here.
Very good, Ian. So we are looking at the topic of 4v4 plus keepers with bumpers to goal. And in this activity, as you can see on the screen, we have a 7v7 field that we're using because it provides an excellent three-zone field layout with the build outlines at both ends, providing 3 zones, an end zone, 2 end zones, and a middle zone. And the activity predominantly occurs in this middle zone that we've also narrowed by providing a wide channel on both sides. And in this middle area, we have 4 blues and 4 whites. And the whites are attacking against the yellow goalkeeper in this direction, and the blues are attacking in the opposite direction. And in order for those players to enter into either of the end zones, they must penetrate either on the dribble or the pass. And once that happens, both the attacking players and the defending players can enter the area. On the outside to begin with, we're allowing the team in possession to use a bumper on each side, and the opponent must step away and not interfere with the bumpers to begin with. So we create essentially in this central area a 6 versus 4 with each team having a goalkeeper. And Vince, I'd like you to talk a little bit about some of the methodologies and some of the observations that you have on sequence 1.
Sure. Well, first off, just having the 4v4 in the middle will create a realistic environment for the players as far as how the midfield normally is. It's very crowded usually, especially on a smaller field. So that space is appropriate. And as far as using the activity to be functional, so like this player here for the white could be a 7 or a winger, and then this player could be, over here, could be an 11. So it could be very functional. And the conditions, they vary. It could be, for example, 2-touch in this middle zone. It could also be, there can also be a little condition. I think this is definitely more for advanced level players, where if this player here in the middle receives it, he or she can't physically turn. So they can't turn the ball, so they have to play the way they're faced. So what that's going to help with is getting some support underneath with this player. And then the only way to go forward is to either pass forward or dribble forward, as you already expressed, David, with the restriction. So, and the high offside line encourages the defenders to stay high and therefore give more realistic pressure as well.
Okay, thanks, Vince. Let's go to sequence number 2, and we'll see that the play progresses. The original diagram, we saw the ball rolled out to the central defender. That player has now turned, and she's played the ball high into the more attacking central midfield player, maybe the number 8. And when they played that ball, they've now made a forward run. So the same player that initiated the play has now made a forward run into the opponent's box to receive a through pass, and a great shot on goal ends up with a point. So as we can see here, the wide players haven't been involved in the play, but have provided some uncertainty to the defender who is putting pressure on the ball in case that player would want to play wide. And so now they're in somewhat 2 minds on whether they want to play high or whether they want to play wide. Vince, over to you for sequence number 2.
So what we're looking for here with the main activity being concentrated in the middle is how do these wingers or these wide players support angles? And I think really the key for them is to read the pressure that's on the ball. So if, for example, this player here in blue has a lot of pressure on the ball, then that's a cue for this player, who's the 7 at the moment, to come back and support. this activity also gets into the idea of, I'm just going to steal something from Bobby Clark, but we also use it in our coaching programs as well, the idea of going through, around, or over. And so when the goalkeeper distributes the ball, the first thing this player has to think, can we go through the opponent, or now do we simply just go around the opponent? And we can go around on the ball side, or we can maybe switch and change a point of attack to get forward. So, and what, as a coach, you're constantly looking for is depth. Are we getting depth? So, for example, is this player getting as high as possible? And are we providing width to give these two players here in the middle more opportunities to penetrate through the middle third? And then there's a condition at the bottom which is very appropriate as far as to the modern game, and that is, when we go forward, we go forward. We all go forward, and then can we keep them in that half once we get the ball in that attacking half? So the idea of all attackers must be in the attacking half in order for the goal to count. It's a great little condition, and it's just another little challenge for them to deal with.
And let's go to now sequence 3, and we have a condition on here, make it, take it, which just simply means that the team that just scored is rewarded by having possession again. The goalkeeper runs off to the side where they have a large supply of balls, collects it, and then can use their area to then come forward and distribute. And in this case, unlike the previous example, the ball has been played wide to the player that is unopposed. And the one difference here is now we've made this wide player only restricted to being inside their half of the field. So essentially now they are restricted to be in the box that is on their half of the field. They cannot penetrate and move forward. So support is coming from a deeper position than maybe it was previously. And similarly, for the blue players that are going in this direction, their wide players are restricted in their half of the field to provide wide support. Now, there's other things we can do here. We can allow players to move freely now in and out of the wide positions, but I'm going to leave that discussion over to Vince.
So when we talk about making activities less challenging and more challenging, I mean, one of the easiest ways to make anything less challenging is to increase the space. For example, you can increase the space in the middle, giving these 4 players a little bit more room, but that makes it more challenging for these wide players. However, if you need more success in the central channel or central part, then make that space a little bit bigger. And that's a real simple way to make it less challenging. And then as far as more challenging, again, you can do the same thing with the space. You could take this space and just make it more narrow. So now it's really tight, but the space now becomes more available on the flanks. So it just depends on what you want to achieve. What's your main goal? Is it to improve the play of the central midfielders, or are you trying to get more of your attacking, your wide players more involved in the attack? So I think how you look at the less challenging, more challenging depends basically on the outcome that you want to achieve.
So Ian, as this is our last slide of this activity, can you share with us any concluding comments and any words of wisdom for our coaches?
Absolutely. Because you guys have set this up really nicely. So from the point of view of this person, that's the person we're talking to today, the coach. What have you got here? You've got 14 players, which seems like a reasonable turnout at training. And the reality, and I saw it last night when I was evaluating a coach on his advanced national, you probably get about half a field sometimes. You may or may not get full goals, but for seldom do you get the full field. So this goes across the park. You've got a field set up. Very easily, you lift up the cones and you've got your 6v6 plus goalkeepers. So you get your full game. So the minimal amount of setup fits to your numbers. Often you get a 15th player, or you get an odd number. So you put that player in the middle of this activity as an all-time offense. So there's a numerical advantage. or you give them exclusively to one team or the other. So one team is numbers down, one team is numbers up, different challenges for them to address. You've got the wing competition set up here, so you can make this full-blown 1v1. You can make them passive defenders to give that numerical advantage. So just, again, along the lines of less and more challenge, but everything that Vince, myself, and David would ask you as coaches to do is manipulating your environment based on your reality. And again, my thought is you probably get half a field, 14, 15 kids. And this is a session that you can run and manipulate to your choice. So I really like the way this one presents.
Well, thank you, Ian, and thank you, Vince, for your time today. And thank you to the coaches for joining us for this edition of Give and Go Live.